Could Texas be in trouble last week of the regular season against Texas A&M? That's Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC, here to discuss it. I am on record many a times, Chris, saying I'm not a fan of realignment and the withering down of the Big 12, the destruction of the Pac-12, the pending potential destruction of the ACC. But one of the good things that it has generated here is the return of Texas and Texas A&M, which is a purely authentic and wonderful rivalry between two fan bases that just hate each other. And you know what? I'm here for it and I'm okay with it. But Texas is going to be favored in this game. There's no betting line for it just yet. But are they in any real trouble last week of the regular season when they go to College Station?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been saying it all offseason, and I'll stick with it. I think this is a game A&M is going to win. I just think
whoa.
Yeah, look, I've said all offseason, I like Steve Sarkisian. I like Texas. I think they had an amazing resurgent year last year, but just because they did this, look, let's not fall in the trap of Texas is back, right? Like every time we buy into that, what do we find out? Texas is indeed not back. We've seen it multiple times in the last, decade plus. And so I like Texas. Again, they've done a great job of trying to fill some holes, addressing a lot of needs through the transfer portal, but you lose those experienced wide receivers like A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. You lose J.T. Sanders. You lose Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat on the defense. I mean, these are real leaders that you had on last year's team. And just because you bring back Quinn Ewers, Quinn Ewers, great. You got to win at Tuscaloosa at Alabama is fantastic, but you didn't look great against Oklahoma. You threw 2 early interceptions in your biggest game of the year. You lost that one. And then his other biggest game, he lost to Washington in the playoffs. So I just say that to say I think this is going to be kind of one of those years where people are counting out A&M because it's Mike Elko's year one, but that schedule is real soft for A&M. If they can beat Notre Dame week 1, I think there's a real chance A&M is at least an 8-win team, if not a 9-win, and if things go their way, maybe even a 10-win team if everything falls into place. For Texas, I think that they're coming in a little bit big-headed going, it's the SEC, no big deal. We just beat Alabama last year. Yeah, you beat one SEC team. Now you got to play a whole schedule of SEC teams, and I think Texas is in for a little bit of a rude awakening. Look, there's a reason why these fan bases hate each other still. The Texas fight song literally says, and it's goodbye to A&M. At A&M, they literally sing Saw Varsity's Horns Off, which refers to Texas. So that rivalry runs thick, and it's going to be like A&M Super Bowl. Like, let's say A&M has, 3 or 4 losses by that game. They're going to put everything they have into that game. And I use it as an example. 2 years ago, when LSU went to A&M, remember Brian Kelly's first year in the SEC, they had already wrapped up the SEC West. They were going, hey, we're going to Atlanta. We might have an outside chance at the playoff if we can, win out here. And what Texas A&M did was they secretly got healthy. They had held a couple guys out, and they put everything they had in that game. They got Devon Achane back, who ended up getting drafted. He's now Miami Dolphins starting running back. But, that happened. They got Moose Muhammad, had a bust-out game. I mean, A&M put everything they had in that game. They knew they weren't going to a bowl game. They treated that game like it was a Super Bowl, and they upset LSU in College Station. I think it's going to be same vibes. A&M is going to put everything they have into beating Texas in the last week of the season, no matter how many wins or losses they have. That's going to be the hottest ticket in college football all year long. I mean, I'm already hearing people are, they're going to start camping out days before. That is going to be one of the biggest games in the SEC, and could certainly, like, Texas is welcome to the SEC moment. Nothing more the Aggies would love than to hand them a loss.
Boy, I tell you, I'm just going to make it very clear for those in the comments of YouTube who partake in such things that Chris's comments are his, and they stand for his beliefs and not the belief of the host of Locked On College Football here. Now, I don't think Texas A&M is a bad team in 2024 because I think Mike Elko is a good coach. They have had so much talent depart, but they have brought in a lot of talent as well. If you consider that a net neutral, I still don't know if with Connor Wegman at quarterback, you can be a 10-win team in the SEC. That feels a little far-fetched to me. I know you can do it with Quinn Ewers. Yeah, they were in the Big 12 a season ago. If you can go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, though, you can make it happen. I think you can do it, and I think Texas's roster and the transfers they've added this year. No, I don't expect those guys to be a 1-to-1 replacement for the players they lost a season ago. I do still think that you're in the 80 to 85% range of what they were a year ago at the very least. And Quinn Ewers has got another year in college football with Steve Sarkisian as his head coach. I am always of the belief here on this very show, Chris, that if you're a team that returns some combination of your head coach, quarterback, and offensive coordinator, I have a hard time not liking you because there's so much familiarity, there's so much continuity that other programs can't find. And that's the case at Texas A&M. You got a new head coach, new OC coming in. I lean Texas in that game.
But at Texas, you lose your entire receiving core. It's great you bring back Quinn Ewers, but Quinn Ewers laid a wet fart against Texas and laid a wet fart against Washington, all because he played well against Alabama. Great, one off. You beat Bama and Tuscaloosa. It's awesome. You don't get a pass and just we assume you're going to go undefeated next year. The other part of this argument is Sarkisian.
Well, I didn't pick him to go undefeated. Now I don't know that they're doing that. I think you could talk me into Texas going 10-2, but let's not pretend like their receiving core is a bunch of bums. They got Jonte Cook, who's a former 5-star guy. Isaiah Bond, we know, is good. Silas Bolden will be a good gadget player at the very least. Are they first and second round NFL talents? No, I don't think they are across the board. But is it still a good receiving core? Yes, I think it is.
Well, that's the point, is they're not as good as Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, who just went in the first and second round, respectively. So the only thing I'll say here is, look, is Mike Elko going to be a good coach in the SEC? I don't know. Time will tell. He's recruiting very well. He brought in some big pieces to the transfer portal. Nick Scorton from Purdue, I think, is going to be a double-digit sack guy in the SEC this year. He's ready for a monster breakout season. But on the flip side, I'm not sold on Steve Sarkisian as an elite coach. All these people putting him in the top 10 in college football rankings and coaches, and I'm going, wait a minute. Steve Sarkisian's best season at Washington, he went 8-5. His best season at USC, he went 9-4, and his best season at Texas prior to this past season was 8-5. 12-2 is the outlier. That's the anomaly. That's not the norm. That's not what he's going to do year in and year out. Steve Sarkisian is just a really good 8-9 win coach a year. That's what he is. So the expectation that Texas is just going to come in and, oh yeah, one of the favorites in the SEC. This ain't Kansas and Baylor anymore. They got to play an SEC schedule. Granted, it's not the toughest one. It's not like Oklahoma's schedule, but I just don't see. I think Texas is in for a little bit of a rude awakening. I think they'll have a couple of losses going into that A&M game, and I think the Aggies win that game.
I think you're looking at the odds on FanDuel. Texas's win total is 10.5, and I think you are telling people to hammer with Mjolnir, perhaps the under 10.5 there, Chris. That's what it sounds like to me, because and frankly, with their schedule, I don't know that it's a terrible bet. They have to play Georgia this year. They have to play Oklahoma, as always. That's a game you can lose. This Texas A&M game is not going to be a cakewalk. And look, I don't think they're going to lose all those big games, but I don't think they're going to win every single one of them either. On this matchup with the Aggies, let's close on this, Chris. What is it about Texas A&M's team that gives you the belief that they can overcome a quarterback deficit that I fully believe they have? Connor Wegman, Quinn Ewers, I don't even know if that's even an argument there. How can Texas A&M account for that gap?
I think you're discounting Connor Wegman. When Connor Wegman, prior to his injury last year, I mean, he had a couple 300-yard passing games. He had a five touchdown game against New Mexico, and I get it. You know, he got hurt as they got in the SEC.
New Mexico's win total this year is 2.5, just so we're on the same page.
Okay, I'm just saying, go back to your prior 8 touchdowns and no interceptions, you know, in a limited playing time. Like Connor Wegman's numbers, when he's been healthy, have been really, really good. And so, you know, what does it look like if he could finally stay healthy for a full season? I think the gap between Wegman and Quinn Ewers is actually not that far. And in fact, I would say the concern on the other side is Quinn Ewers has to stay healthy. Quinn Ewers has gotten hurt each of the past 2 seasons, and he's missed games, and they had to rely on Malik Murphy. Hey, guess what, Arch Manning, get ready, because your time may come. And if he performs well, Quinn Ewers might get Wally pipped by the end of this season if Arch Manning is the real deal. So just putting all that out there. How does A&M stack up? Their offensive line, I mean, the O-line is absolutely loaded. Chase Pasantis, Ruben Fothery on the right side of the line, Cam Dewberry's back. I just think this is a seasoned veteran group on the offensive line. It's going to play much better. It's Mike Elko's bread and butter. Tough, hard-nosed defense, physical run game with Le'Veon Moss and Ruben Owens and all those guys in the backfield. And then look out for Noah Thomas. I think he's going to emerge as one of the big stars at wide receiver at A&M this year with a healthy Connor Wegman. A&M, keep an eye on them. They're a dark horse. Probably 8-4 is what they go, but I do think they will beat Texas in that final game.
Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC, bringing the absolute flaming Paul Skeens level heat. Appreciate it as always. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.